Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're untangling the incredibly fascinating and sometimes pretty complex power dynamics of the Indian state legislature. If you've ever wondered how state-level laws actually get made or why the system is designed the way it is, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to look directly at the constitutional mechanics that govern these bodies. So, let's dive right into it.
We've got 5 main stops on our journey today. First, setting up the legislature. Second, taking a peek inside the Legislative Council. Third, diving into the Legislative Assembly. Fourth, figuring out which house is actually superior. And fifth, how bills get passed.
All right, part 1, setup of the state legislature.
So having 2 houses, it's actually not the norm everywhere. While most states operate perfectly fine with a single house, these 6 specific states, Andhra Pradesh, Bihar, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Telangana, and UP, utilize a bicameral structure. That basically means their lawmaking process has an extra layer of complexity built into it compared to the rest of the country.
In these 6 regions, the state legislature literally splits right down the middle. In one corner, we have the Legislative Council, also known as the Vidhan Parishad, and in the other, the Legislative Assembly, or Vidhan Sabha. To really grasp state governance, we need to understand how these 2 totally distinct bodies operate side by side.
Moving on to part 2, inside the Legislative Council.
Now, the first thing you really need to know about the council is how people even get there. Unlike your standard popular elections where you just go and check a box for your favorite candidate, members here are chosen through a highly specific, indirect voting method. It's called proportional representation with a single transferable vote. It's a mouthful, I know, but it's specifically designed to ensure a precise mix of voices makes it into the chamber rather than just whoever happens to win a simple majority.
This complex election style creates a super diverse group, totally by design. It's almost like a giant puzzle. 1/3 of the members are elected by state MLS, another third elected by local bodies. Then, the governor steps in and actually nominates about 1/6 of the members, specifically picking folks with expertise in art, science, literature, social science, and the cooperative movement. Finally, 1/12 are elected by teachers, and another 1/12 by graduates. The whole goal here is functional representation, bringing in experts, academics, and local leaders who might not want to run in a massive, noisy public election. To make sure this diverse body has a certain level of maturity and life experience, the eligibility rules are pretty strict. A citizen must be at least 30 years old just to be eligible for membership in the Legislative Council. On top of that, their terms are long, 6 years in total. And here's a cool fact. 1/3 of the members retire every 2 years, which creates this continuous, permanent house that never actually fully dissolves.
So why go through all the trouble to engineer such a complex second house? Well, its main job is to put the brakes on hasty legislation. It provides what's famously called the sobering effect of Philip sober over Philip drunk. I love that phrasing. By bringing in older, experienced professionals and educators who aren't constantly sweating over their next immediate popular election, the council acts as a contemplative check on the system. It ensures laws are actually thought through rather than just rushed out in the heat of political passion.
But wow, here is the plot twist. Despite its grand design, its diverse representation, and those 6-year terms, the council is actually incredibly vulnerable. Under Article 169, it exists entirely at the mercy of the Legislative Assembly. If the Assembly passes a resolution, which takes a majority of its total membership plus a 2/3 majority of those present and voting, it can ask the national parliament to either create or completely abolish the state's legislative council, just like that. So this sober house essentially operates under the constant shadow of the popular house.
Let's flip the coin. Part 3. Inside the Legislative Assembly.
In total contrast to the council's intricate, indirect appointments, the assembly is the popular house. It represents the direct, unfiltered will of the people. Elections here use universal adult suffrage and the first-past-the-post system. It is totally straightforward. The candidate who gets the most votes in their constituency takes the seat.
The Assembly operates on a huge scale. We're talking a potential maximum of up to 500 members and a minimum of 60. It's also way more accessible. You only need to be 25 years old to run. Members serve a standard 5-year term, and crucially, under Article 332, there are specific reservations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to guarantee direct demographic representation. Make no mistake, this is the loud, energetic, and directly democratic heart of state politics.
Which brings us to the main event. Part 4. Which house is superior?
When it comes to executive accountability, things get really interesting. Sure, members from either house can be appointed as ministers, and hey, sometimes the chief minister even comes from the Legislative Council. But, and this is a huge but, the Council of Ministers as a whole is collectively responsible only to the Legislative Assembly. The Assembly holds the ultimate weapon, the no-confidence motion. The Legislative Council, they literally cannot introduce or pass confidence, no confidence, or censure motions at all. The government basically lives or dies on the floor of the Assembly.
And what about making standard, day-to-day laws? Well, on ordinary bills, the Assembly still reigns supreme. The so-called thinking house, the Council, is pretty much reduced to merely a delaying chamber. If the Assembly passes a bill, the Council can only hold it up for a maximum of 4 months. They have no absolute veto power. Eventually, the Assembly can just force the bill through, whether the Council likes it or not.
This Assembly supremacy even extends right up to the national stage. When the national parliament passes a constitutional amendment that needs state ratification, it's the state assembly that gets to vote on it. The Legislative Council gets zero say. Plus, council members don't even participate in the election of the President of India, whereas assembly members absolutely do. The council is completely shut out of the whole shebang when it comes to these major constitutional processes.
Let's look at how this plays out in action. Part 5. The passage of bills.
The very type of bill determines who holds the power right from the starting line. An ordinary bill. That can be introduced in either house. But when you are dealing with the lifeblood of the government, finances, the rules change completely. A financial or money bill can only be introduced in the Legislative Assembly. The popular house holds the absolute power of the purse.
In fact, the council's role when it comes to money is practically non-existent. Once a money bill passes the Assembly and heads over to the Council, they are given a meager 14 days to look it over and offer recommendations. Just 14 days. And if they don't return it within that window, the bill is just deemed passed by both houses anyway. They literally cannot stop the money.
So when we lay all this out, analyzing the executive, legislative, and financial powers, the conclusion of this institutional rivalry is pretty much undeniable.
The Legislative Assembly is without a doubt vastly superior. Sure, the Legislative Council provides some beautiful functional representation, giving a platform to teachers, graduates, and artists, and it offers that crucial, sobering second glance at legislation. But at the end of the day, it's the directly elected Assembly that wields the true, unyielding power in state governance. They control the money, they control the executive branch, and whatever they will ultimately becomes law.
Which leads us with a really provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. We've seen this careful design meant to create balance, but we've also seen the constitutional loopholes that hand the Assembly all the actual leverage. So, in this tale of two houses, if an easily bypassed delaying chamber can be overruled or even totally abolished by the popular house it's supposed to be checking, does it actually strengthen our democracy by preventing hasty legislation, or does it just slow down the inevitable? Thank you so much for joining me today. Keep questioning the structures around you, and I'll see you next time.